How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On The Ball and welcome back to another round of Premier League predictions where me and my brother go head-to-head in predicting Premier League outcomes. Sim has got 237 to his name at this moment in time. I've got 244, and the way the scoring works, it's 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. And the star man, we pick a man at the end of each episode, and it's 5 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist. And once you pick that man, you cannot pick them again for the rest of the season. So we'll get into our predictions in a second. But we didn't bring you this prediction at the end of the last episode. So Liverpool played Aston Villa at Villa Park last night. It finished 2-2. Sim went for 3-2 to Liverpool. I went for 2-1 to Liverpool. And I guess you could probably say that we were both close to getting 5 points. But, you know, Darwin Núñez right at the end, well, a bit towards the end, had a clear, I mean, one of the most clear-cut opportunities you'll ever see to make it 3-2, and he skied it over the bar. And yeah, I mean, it was a good game of football. I was more concentrating on the Man City Real Madrid game last night. I did have a feeling that Liverpool were going to get drop points in this one.
Well, Villa away is a tough ground to go to, but I think Liverpool will be kicking themselves because they had the chances to win it. Jota in the first half missing an absolute gilt-edge opportunity when one-on-one with Martinez. He actually went nearer the corner flag than it did the goal, which is not like Diogo Jota. And then you have Darwin Núñez with that open goal miss, which was absolutely crazy miss. I know Szoboszlai should be probably putting it in the back of the net himself, but squared it to Núñez, and that was what an opportunity. But Villa, I thought was a brilliant performance from them. I thought they did really well to overturn what was a 1-0 deficit at the time after Garcia with a mad mistake, gifting it to Jota. Salah continuing his mad form and putting Liverpool in the lead, and Villa turned it around. But at 2-1, I always had a feeling Liverpool would turn it around because I've seen them in this position so many times this season where they're behind at the break and they just create an unbelievable amount of opportunities in that second half. They do it. They seem to do it consistently. But what they also seem to be doing consistently is bottling chances to really put this title beyond Arsenal. And it's happened a number of times now. This is becoming a theme. You look at the Man United game at Anfield. I think Arsenal dropped points in that game. Everyone was saying if Liverpool beat Man United, title's pretty much over. They bottled that game through 2-2. Then they had the game in hand, Everton away, 2-1 up going into the last minute and bottle it, draw 2-2. And this game, a chance to go 10 points clear of Arsenal. And again, they failed to get maximum points. And is this something that's going to come back to bite them? Because it's happening frequently now. And it has left the door open again for Arsenal. Now, I know it's still 8 points, so it's still a significant gap, but they have that game in hand. They could cut it to 5 points. They've still got to go to Anfield as well, Liverpool. And Liverpool do have a tough run now coming up. They got City away. They've got Newcastle at home over the next couple of games. Arsenal
play Everton again soon as well.
They play Everton again soon. Arsenal don't have the easiest run. I think they've got Forest away coming up in midweek. But I think Liverpool have had chances to put this title beyond Arsenal, and they failed to take them. And if I was a Liverpool fan, that would be slightly worrying at the moment, as much as the gap's still there. And I'm being one saying I don't see Arsenal having that consistency to really catch up with Liverpool, but Liverpool just keep gifting them chances, and that's what's most frustrating. I think Liverpool are maybe suffering from the same issues they're suffering from last season, where they play great football. Most games they really should be winning, but they are suffering from missing gilt-edged opportunities, and they do leave the back door open a bit.
Yeah, I would say in terms of Arsenal, Saka and Martinelli are on their way back. They're saying that they could miss another 4 games or something. If Arsenal are still within like 5 points by the time Saka comes back, then I think we've got a genuine title race in our hands from that point until the end of the season. It's up to Arsenal to stay in it until then, because I thought they were absolutely shocking last week against Leicester, and they got a bit of slice of luck bringing on Marino, and he put the ball in the net a couple of times. So I think Arsenal just need to kind of, for their sake, stay in it over the next 4 weeks. I do think Liverpool are going to drop points as well. So if Arsenal go and get a couple of wins now, because I think Liverpool are going to drop points definitely against the likes of Man City this weekend. So it's a real big opportunity over the next 4 weeks to stay in the title race, and then they can go on a run at the end of the season, and I think that'll stand them in good stead. So I think this title race is nowhere near over.
I think it should be outside Liverpool.
Should be, but
they
it's not.
should be outside. It should be over.
It's not.
I know, that's my point, and that's worrying for Liverpool's point of view. I think if you're a Liverpool fan as well, I guess you would argue in a lot of those games, even the games they dropped points, like even the Newcastle game as well. Look back at that as well. They've been in positions to win these games, and they've had the chances to win these games, and they've missed them, and they've missed those opportunities. But they haven't very seldom been outplayed, or even in games where they've dropped points, more often than not, they're better than the opposition. So if they can just take advantage of that. From now to the end of the season, they should be okay, but they keep leaving that door open. They keep giving Arsenal opportunities to come back into this title race, and as long as you're doing that, that's going to fuel belief, and that will be very frustrating. And I don't know what did Liverpool end on last season? 81 points, I think, or something like that. I think in the Premier League, so they actually still had a good season despite falling away last season. I think they're suffering. Maybe they're counting the cost of not signing anyone right now, because I think a lot of these games are very reminiscent of some of the games they dropped points in the latter stage of last season, where they played well, they had tons of chances, but they didn't end up getting the result, and it happened a lot last season.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I look at Liverpool and I look at Arsenal, and I'm looking at the top teams in this league, and I feel like the quality in the league in that sense has gone down a lot. Because obviously Man City were just a different kind of beast, and maybe it's like kind of back to the levels of what it was maybe 10 years ago in terms of title races. Maybe Man City just put our expectations a bit too high of what title challenges should look like. But I'm looking at the Premier League, and I feel like in general the level of the Premier League has gone up. Basically, I think the ceiling has been raised, but I think then I think like the floor has been raised, but I think the ceiling has gone down. Yeah,
you're probably right. I think City have set a ridiculous standard, but it's not like Liverpool are a bad team. Like, they won all 8 of their Champions League games, didn't they? Or something, I think, or drew 1. So it's not like in Europe they're struggling.
I don't think they're a bad team, but I don't look at them and say like, wow, they should be champions. You know what I mean? I don't look at them as like champions elect. You know what I mean?
But what are we comparing them to? Are we comparing them to City or across Europe? Because they're still probably the best team in Europe.
Yeah, no, it's true. They probably are the best team in Europe, and I think like some of the top teams in Europe have also decreased levels this season. Like Real Madrid aren't exactly the Real Madrid that we've seen over the last couple of years. You know, some of the top teams in Europe are not at the levels that they have been in previous years.
Yeah, I think that's also right. I'm just saying, I don't think the Premier League has dropped. Maybe they have dropped because Man City have set a ridiculous standard, but I still think the Premier League's really high. And I also think you can see that with the teams coming up from the Championship, or they're really struggling. I think it's likely this will be the second year in a row that all 3 promoted teams get relegated, whereas that only happened once before in the whole Premier League, which is crazy. So I think the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is increasing, and I think these middle teams and bottom half teams and all they're getting much better. I agree.
No, I agree with that. And it's basically the middle of the range teams in the Premier League are getting better.
Which is why I think as well, a part of the reason as well, Spurs and United are really struggling as well.
The top teams seem to have got worse, and the teams coming up just are not able to compete with the teams in the Premier League just because of the money in the Premier League.
They're saying, could this be the end of the Big Six? Is it over now?
It could be. It could very well be. But let's see how this season finishes, and let's go into another round of Premier League predictions. 10 games to get through. Starting off with Leicester against Brentford at the King Power. Sim's gone for 2-2 here. I've gone for 3-1 to Brentford. I just can't see anything in this Leicester team, to be honest. And I feel like the way they play, Brentford, with the players that they've got, are going to be willing to catch them out on the counter-attack. Really strong attacking players, with Sade doing really well this season. And obviously you've got Wissa and Mbeumo there as well. I think it's going to be too hot for this Leicester team to handle. So I've gone for 3-1.
I went for 2-2. I think Leicester, obviously knowing that games are running out, they really need to step up their performance level. I know they lost 4-0 to Everton in recent weeks, but as well, other performances, they beat us. They took United quite close. I think, what was their score last week? I think they...
2-0 against Arsenal.
2-0, yeah, but they played quite well in that game. So I think their performances have been slightly better in recent weeks, and I think as well, the way Brentford play away from home, they can be a bit open sometimes, as much as they do kind of like to sit back, and especially when they're playing better opposition. But I think against the likes of Leicester, they're going to try and come out their shell a bit and try and attack, and I think that could suit the likes of Vardy and El Canuso. I think it's been quite good form. So I can actually see Leicester doing something in this game, but I also don't think they have the defence to hold up to what Brentford have in attack. So I've gone for a 2-2 draw here.
Yeah, I mean, Brentford have stepped it up a lot in recent weeks and from their away performances.
Yeah, it's kind of flipped, isn't it?
5-0 away at Southampton, 2-1 away at Crystal Palace, 1-0 away at West Ham. You know, they've got 3 wins on the bounce now away from home. And I just feel this one will be no different. So I've gone for 3-1. Let's move on to Everton against Manchester United. Both of us gone for the exact same scoreline here in 2-0. Another Moyes masterclass.
Yeah, I think obviously he's going to want revenge, especially given his time at Man United. That's for sure. Everton at home, you know, with their last kind of Goodison farewell tour they're going on, I'm sure they're going to be well up for every home game at the moment. They're then just riding a wave of momentum. Everton's Moyes has come in, they really turned their fortunes around. Brilliant performance against Liverpool at home last time out, and they backed that up with a brilliant away win at Crystal Palace, where everyone thought surely they'll be running on empty in that game, but they weren't. They got the result, and I think they're just well better organised than Man United right now, and I think Man United are going to struggle, especially with all the injuries they have. I'm looking at their front line. I just look at how Everton defend and how aggressive they are, and I can just see Man United struggling in that with those phases of play. And I don't see Man United's defence holding up to scrutiny, and Beto's in brilliant form. I think Everton are going to keep riding that wave of momentum, so 2-0.
Yeah, I just can't see where the goals are coming from for Manchester United. I know they created some chances at Tottenham, but Everton are not going to afford them the same luxury that Spurs did last weekend. So I can't see anything but a pretty convincing Everton win and carry on the misery that is going on at Manchester United. So I've gone for 2-0 here. Next up, Arsenal against West Ham. Repeat of last week. Sim's gone for 2-0. I've gone for 1-0. Again, like with the way that Arsenal played against Leicester, I feel it's going to be a similar performance where it's going to be, you know, quite solid in a defensive aspect, but going forward it's going to be pretty blunt. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Mourinho. Is he going to start up front, or is he going to be used as an impact sub again? But you look at their forward line in Nwaneri, Trossard and Sterling. Apart from Nwaneri, it feels like no one can really hurt opposition defences, and I feel like this will be no different. West Ham, though, on the other hand, since Potter has come in, they just can't seem to get any sort of run going or any sort of results, to be honest, in general. So I feel like Arsenal will find something from somewhere, but and they'll be strong enough defensively to keep the back door shut. So I've gone for 1-0.
Yeah, in a weird way, if it was Lopetegui in charge, I might have actually gone for a more positive result for West Ham, but unfortunately Potter's obviously implementing a different style of play at West Ham. They're clearly not got to grips with it just yet. Their football is not in full flow yet. There's not really too many glimpses of West Ham playing that football that they need to make the system work. I thought of Brentford last week, they were terrible. Brentford found it quite comfortable to beat them. And despite Arsenal's injuries, I think West Ham's defence isn't great as well at the moment. It's not going to hold up to too much scrutiny. And I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable win. And I think while they're still ironing out these issues as well, Paquetá's out, so he's going to be a big miss. And while West Ham's still ironing out these issues in their system, I think Arsenal will take advantage of it. So 2-0.
Bournemouth against Wolves up next. Sim's gone for 3-1.
Yeah, I think Bournemouth at home. I know that Wolves had a really good performance against Liverpool at Anfield last week, but Bournemouth just give that chaos factor against these well-settled defences, and it seems to be working at the moment. And again, despite the injuries, Utara's in great form, Kluivert is in great form, Semenyo's in great form, and I think Wolves' defence is going to struggle to handle it. I do see Cunha, Ait-Nouri causing Bournemouth some trouble, but I see Bournemouth overwhelming them, so 3-1.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same, albeit I just feel like it will just be a little bit closer than maybe some people anticipate. Wolves, they're playing some decent stuff at the moment. You know, did really well against Liverpool last time out, back-to-back wins, one in the FA Cup and against Aston Villa at home, and then a narrow loss against Arsenal the week before that in a 1-0 defeat at Molineux. So I feel like Wolves can kind of handle these kind of teams, but I do think by the end of it, Bournemouth will be a bit too strong, particularly at home at the Vitality. But I see a really interesting game, really interesting tactical battle. But I'm just going for Bournemouth just to edge it on the day. But I feel like it's going to be a really competitive game of football. So I've gone for 2-1 to Bournemouth. Next up is Fulham against Crystal Palace, a London derby at Craven Cottage. Both of us gone for the same scoreline here. And a bit of a game of chess here. I mean, Crystal Palace obviously playing some good stuff at the moment, but not getting, I think they a really disappointing result for them against Everton last time out. Fulham, you always know they're a really hard nut to crack at Craven Cottage. And if this was at Selhurst Park, I probably would have gone for a Palace win, but just because it's at Craven Cottage, I feel like Marco Silva could pull something out of the bag here. So 1-1.
Yeah, I've gone for 1-0 as well. Fulham do like a draw, no doubt about it. I think against these kind of teams is where they struggle a bit more, rather than teams that come out to play against them and try and be open and expansive. I think Fulham like those kind of situations. Same with Palace as well. I think it's going to be a tight strategic game, and I think it's going to be a game where a bit more of a game of chess than an open, expansive game. And I think both teams are going to hold each other at arm's length. So I've gone for a 1-1 draw here.
Yeah, haven't conceded an away goal since the middle of December, Crystal Palace.
Well, there you
really
go.
Impressive. But yeah, let's go to Ipswich, Tottenham. Both of us gone for the same scoreline again, 2-1 to Tottenham.
Yeah, I think Tottenham are going to win this one, but hopefully they're going to build some momentum in the league. We've got 2 wins on the trot and 2 clean sheets. Obviously, Ipswich away, not an easy place to go, beating Chelsea not so long ago at Portman Road, and Liam Delap giving a brilliant performance. But Tottenham having players back, we'll wait to see what kind of players back we might have in this game. But hopefully another week in their legs, another week's training, more integration back into the team will lead to another result. I think it's still going to be a tight game. We know Ipswich are fighting for their lives and they're not going to give up easily. And Tottenham, even though they're off the back of 2 wins in the league, they're still obviously not in a great way. So I think Ipswich will try and put us under as much pressure as possible, and we'll probably concede. But I can see Tottenham edging this one 2-1.
Yeah, kind of feel the same. I think it'll be a tough game for Tottenham, as most games are. But I feel, seeing as Spurs lost to Ipswich at home earlier on the season, probably the last time we had a full team, we're getting close to that now. Maybe not a complete full team, but you've got players that have been on the training ground for like the 2 weeks now. So I'm expecting to see a much fresher Tottenham this weekend without 2 games a week as well. So I think Spurs will have the quality and desire to go and win the game, but I think Ipswich will make it incredibly hard, and Liam Delap's going to be an absolute handful for our defence, and I think chances will get presented to him. But I think that with the freshness, hopefully, in the forward line with Tell, Brennan Johnson coming back, Odebear with an extra week on the training ground, I feel like Spurs will have enough freshness in the team to go and get the job done and get the 3 points. And which, if it does happen, it'll be 3 wins on the bounce in the Premier League for Tottenham Hotspur. So let's hope that can happen. But 2-1 is the prediction. Next up is Southampton against Brighton. And again, we've gone for the exact same scoreline here, 3-1 to Brighton. And I feel like, Brighton seem to have turned it up a notch in recent weeks. And I feel this game will be no different. I think Southampton will probably leave the back door a bit too open for this Brighton side. At home, they'll probably want to be in the ascendancy here. And I think Brighton are just going to pick them off. And they're looking really good with the likes of Mitoma on firing form. Minte was brilliant last game. Welbeck back in the side as well, who seems to make a massive difference to their build-up play and everything like that, and hold up. And he's able to hold up the ball. So 3-1 to Brighton. Yeah,
Brighton have actually failed to beat all the bottom 4 sides, but I think this is going to end here. I think Southampton know, their time in the Premier League is about to come to an end unless they really start getting some wins on the board, and they're going to go all out to try and win this game like they have been doing, and I think they will score a goal. I think they will cause Brighton trouble. But when they went to the Amex and they got a draw earlier in the season, there was a really solid defensive display, and they were really unlucky not to win that day. But I don't see it being the same on this one. I think they're going to go hell for leather to attack this Brighton side, and Brighton will see them coming, and I think they're going to have the forward players to beat them. So I've gone for a 3-1 win to Brighton.
Villa against Chelsea at Villa Park. We've both gone for the same sort of scoreline again in 2-1 to Aston Villa. Yeah,
I think Villa are going to be too smart for this Chelsea team, especially with the injuries that Chelsea have. That's really hamstringing them at the moment. They're in a terrible run of form. They're not playing well. The results aren't very good either. And I think Villa can take advantage of that. I think Villa, the reinforcements of Asensio and Rashford have really given them that little kind of boost in the squad depth in the forward line that they needed. I still think in the back line they're kind of struggling a bit, but Chelsea at the moment are really struggling to create chances. They don't look as fresh as they were, and also the depth seems to have deserted Chelsea in that front line. With Jackson injury, Felix loaned out, Mudryk out on loan, so now they're kind of relying on and Madueke has a long-term injury as well. So they are kind of relying on the same set of attacking players, albeit they are good players, but at the moment they're all out of form essentially, and they can't seem to change it. I think Villa good performance against Liverpool. I think there will be a bit tired off the back of it, but I think even in that tiredness, Ramsey should be coming back in the team after he was off the bench on midweek, and I think they should just have enough to scrape past a poor Chelsea team at the moment. So I've gone for 2-1 to Villa.
Yeah, both these teams are actually on really bad form in the Premier League. I mean, I know Villa have got some good results in the Cups and in Europe and stuff like that, but I'm looking at both these teams and both of them are desperate for a win in the Premier League, and I feel like Villa's home form and the home atmosphere and these new players coming in are really going to, push them over the finish line in this game. And I'm looking at both the teams in terms of the bad form, and Chelsea's one is a lot more disappointing if you're a fan of either of these teams. I mean, Chelsea, there's just no fluidity to their play at the moment. They look a bit disjointed. There seems to be maybe some problems behind the camp as well, and the lack of depth as well, which you talk about, which is mad to think about, a lack of depth in this Chelsea side when at the beginning of the season we were all talking about Chelsea having too many players, and now they've got a lack of depth, which is absolutely mad to think about.
But it's something I was saying at the beginning of the season, which when Chelsea were playing well, obviously it looked like a stupid criticism, but at the beginning of the season I was saying, I don't know how you can keep all these players happy when you've got so many, and how can you, when you've got people like Nkunku who thinks he should be the star of the team, and Felix, you sign him for big money, and all these players in the front line. I understand the logic. You have all these players, and some of them play in the Conference League and some of them play in the Premier League, and he's got like 2 teams. But was Nkunku ever going to be happy just playing Conference League, and was Felix ever going to be happy in that situation? And then come January, that's kind of what happened. A lot of players got disgruntled. Nkunku did want to leave, but he ended up being forced to stay. And now he's playing in a position which Maresca says is not his position, and that's also causing problems. So I think the strategy, as much as it was paying off at the beginning of the season, I think it might be unravelling at the moment.
Yeah, you're probably right there, and I do think it's not the happiest of camps, to put it that way. But I think, yeah, Villa, home win for sure here. I think Villa's home form, which has been brilliant all season, even with a few dodgy results in recent weeks, I think Villa and the home crowd will push them onto the win, so 2-1.
Could Villa, though, if Unai Emery misses out on European football in the league, because they're 9th at the moment and they're not in great form, and if they don't win the Champions League, which is unlikely, Unai is great in European competitions, so never rule it out. But if they do finish outside the European places, they've got no Europe for next season. Is that a position you should be worried about?
I don't know about worry, because I still think even with the potential bad form and them potentially finishing out of Europe, I just feel like they'll give Unai the trust to go again next season. I think they love him down there, not up there. I really do.
Yeah, but other managers, if they go Champions League and then no European football, they're under pressure.
Yeah, I know. I mean, Eddie Howe did it as well. He got Champions League and then no European football the year after. But I just feel like Aston Villa, the hierarchy and the fans know that they got a good thing with Unai Emery. And I think without European football, I think they'll back Unai and back themselves to get back in it the following year.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Next up is Newcastle against Nottingham Forest. Sim's gone for 2-1 to Newcastle. I've gone for 1-1 here. I'm not entirely impressed with Newcastle's form in recent weeks. Nottingham Forest been a bit up and down in recent weeks as well, but I feel like the way that Nottingham Forest play, particularly away from home, they're going to frustrate Newcastle a hell of a lot here. And look, Newcastle do have the quality of player to maybe break down this Forest side, but I'm looking at their defensive setup and defensive structure, and I think it's going to be a really frustrating afternoon for Newcastle. I've gone for 1-1.
Yeah, half of me thinks Newcastle might have half an eye on that cup final, which is only a couple weeks away now, and their form has been sliding. It was a really poor performance at the Etihad against Man City, where they really crumbled. But I also think with Forest, I think the 7-0 win against Brighton does gloss over the fact they have lost 5-0 to Bournemouth and 2-1 to Fulham in their last 3 games, and both of those performances were not particularly great. And I think going to St James's Park, Newcastle did go to the City Ground early in the season and win 3-1. I think the way they're set up is actually quite a good way of counteracting this Forest team. And I think at St James's Park, with the home crowd behind them, I think they're going to sneak this one 2-1. And I think Forest might notch up another loss here.
Man City against Liverpool. We've both gone for 2-2 here. Definitely the best game of the weekend. And yeah, I'm looking at Liverpool. They had a disappointing result last night. I'm looking at Man City. They had a really disappointing performance and result last night to Real Madrid. But I feel like Man City will smell a bit of blood here, because Liverpool just not performing that. I mean, they're performing okay. They're just not getting over the line in games, but I don't think they're performing like they were maybe in the start of the season. Man City are on a different kind of trajectory. Their performances in the league are starting to improve, and that Real Madrid game last night would have desperately hurt them. And they know they need to go on a run from now to the end of the season, because if they do, there could be some opportunities there to finish second, maybe to get themselves back in a title race, but that is probably beyond them. But I just feel like Man City are going to smell a bit of blood here, and I was toying with the idea of Man City to win, but I feel like Liverpool just seem to, by hook or by crook, not kind of lose games and stay in the game, and with the star quality that they do have up front with the likes of Mo Salah, they seem to find a goal from anywhere. So I've gone for 2-2.
Yeah, I think City will want a reaction to what was a feeble performance in midweek, and really disappointing considering that they gave obviously Madrid a real good game in that first leg, and probably should have taken at least a result or at least a draw back to the Etihad. They didn't. They let it slip in the last minute, and they still would have backed themselves to go there and score goals and cause Madrid problems. But it was actually easy for Madrid. Madrid found it quite comfortable in which should never be the case against a Man City team. Mbappe was running right, all these different things. City, I think, only had their first shot when they scored, I think, or near the end of the game. Like, they barely laid a glove on Real Madrid. So really disappointing performance from City. Liverpool also midweek, they weren't bad, but those missed chances would have really frustrated them. And I think a lot of performances are quite reminiscent of what we were seeing from Liverpool last season, where these missed chances are really costing them. And I think it could be the case again here at the Etihad. Obviously, Liverpool beat City very comfortably at Anfield early in the season, but with the new signings for Man City, I think it's going to be a rejuvenated City. And as well, they kind of know they still got the FA Cup, obviously, but it's pretty much only the Premier League now for them to really fight for when it comes to saving their season, and they need to get into that top four. So I expect a good performance, and I expect a 2-2 draw here. But when you look at that fight for top four, it is really hotting up, isn't it? Who do you think are getting in there? Because at the moment, Newcastle faltering, Chelsea are faltering, Bournemouth, I mean, they're the informed team at the moment getting into that fight. If we say fifth is Premier League as well, Champions League as well. Forest, obviously, they were well in the clear, but now all of a sudden they're only 4 points clear of that of sixth position. So it's kind of anyone's game at the moment.
Yeah, literally anyone from pretty much in the top half can get Champions League football next season, which is pretty incredible, being 25, 26 games in. Madness. So, I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but I would say that let's say for now, Liverpool and Arsenal are dead certs for top four. I think Man City are probably a dead cert as well. So that leaves two positions for the likes of Forest, Bournemouth, Chelsea, Newcastle, Fulham, Villa, and Brighton. I don't think Fulham will do it. I don't think Brighton will do it. I do think Villa have some sort of chance if they can go on a run. Maybe if they go out the Champions League in the next round, that will leave them on the home straight to just focus on domestic football. I think Villa have a chance. I think Newcastle have a very good chance. Chelsea need to sort something out very quickly if they're going to have put themselves in a chance. But when you look at the form, I mean, it's really hard to bet against Bournemouth right now.
Yeah, they're the ones who seem to be scoring loads of goals and just looking confident, and also know European football. So, they don't have that distraction, whereas Chelsea, Villa, they do. Obviously, City are out of Europe now. Newcastle, will that Carabao Cup distraction get in their heads too much? I don't know if Fulham will have that quality to really take that extra step and get into that top five. But obviously Villa are still there as well, but they've got that European football distraction. So is that going to keep them from getting into that top five? I think at the moment that the top five we're seeing, it might be that, unless Chelsea start really upping their game again. But again, they're in the Conference League, and now with all these Conference League players out on loan and gone, they're going to have to start using their first team in that competition. So is that going to be a distraction? It's really a tight call.
Yeah, I think it will. The Thursday night football for Chelsea will affect them less, I think, than maybe some of the other teams. Because you look at some of the teams in the conference, or you look at all the teams in the Conference League. I think Chelsea can still make a host of changes and still probably get the wins.
But they don't have the changes to make, is my point, especially in the forward line.
If they just play kids, you know what I mean? I still think they can get over.
Not when you're playing the likes. I don't know. I mean, maybe in the round of 16, but when you've still got some decent teams. Betis, Fiorentina, when you're playing these kind of teams, you're still going to have to put out a good side.
They play them. Like, if it comes to semi-final and final, and they match up with them, then they've still got still a long way to go in the season without him.
The thing is, if he doesn't win that trophy, like, it's such an embarrassment. Like,
He'll win it.
But that's my point being, I don't know if he can risk playing the kids. I think he's going to want to play the first team.
But, you're looking at the bench, right, on the weekend. You've still got Jadon Sancho on the bench. You've got Reece James on the bench. You've got Dewsbury Hall. You've got Tosin Adarabioyo. All these players will play in the Conference League.
Yeah, that's fair.
And on top of that Tyreek George, who's, I don't know how old he is, but he came on the last game, and I really like the look of what he was doing. So there are options there, and particularly with injured players coming back as well.
Yeah, but I'm saying my only point is I think it's going to be more of a distraction than it was earlier in the season when they could literally change their whole 11. I don't know if they can do that.
Depends how quickly these injured players come back. Because
I'm saying they're all out for a while. Madueke 2 to 3 months, Jackson 2 months.
Is Madueke 2 to 3 months? Is it?
Well, it's long term. He said he's going to be out for a while. Fofana not back for a while. Badiashile not back for a while. Lavia not back for a while. So a lot of these injuries, really hurting them.
I think they still have enough there to maybe refresh the starting lineups, but maybe not the squad in general. But anyway, let's finish off on the star men. Sim has gone for Yankuba Minte.
Yeah, I think Minte obviously got a couple of goals against Chelsea on last week and a really great performance. And I think he's been a player that's been threatening to score lots of goals, but I think his finishing touches have just been a bit off. But maybe I think once he starts scoring a few, he can ride a wave of momentum, because I think he's got a brilliant dribbling ability, and once he's confident in those goal scoring positions, he's going to score a bucket load, I feel. And I think maybe we saw a glimpse of it against Chelsea, and I'm backing him to do it again against Southampton. So I went for Minte.
Such a tricky player, isn't he? I love watching him play. An absolute box of tricks, and he's got speed, he's got the pace, and yeah, I agree with you. I think Newcastle have got to be kind of ruining the day that they let him go, because I think he's going to be a top player, this guy, Yankuba Minte. And I've gone for Brian Mbeumo away to Leicester on Friday night, so hopefully some early points for me in Predict the Prem this weekend. But Brian Mbeumo doesn't need a second introduction. 14 goals, 3 assists this season. He's been so pivotal for the way that this Brentford side play, and any sort of gaps that Leicester leaves, he's going to be there to exploit them. So I've gone for Brian Mbeumo. Sim's gone for Yankuba Minte. Let me know in the comments section below your thoughts and your predictions going in to another round of Premier League fixtures.